get a lot of Farrellys, Farrelly. That's Farrelly.
Thank you so much.
Nobody's ever mispronounced Bennett, so you.
No, Bennett's Bennett, could be, with one T. You never know. So just right off the bat, obviously this was a co-screen, wrote this together, and I wanted to ask you, A, what the inspiration was behind this story, and then B, what that collaborative process was like. It's comedy's jokes. What was it like collaborating on a comedy? And then just for the writers out there, did you develop any sort of methods for resolving any differences you may have had in that process?
First of all, obviously we want to acknowledge Bobby Farrelly too, who was the third and equally important. And also I want to thank both you and Sammy for putting this together, because
Thanks very much.
this was started months and months ago, and it's just lovely that we were doing this we were a writing team, Peter, Bobby, and I. And it's funny because when we would write together, I would sit at the computer. They were both terrible typists, right? So I'd sit at the computer, they'd sit behind me. But everything that got punched in was something we agreed on. And I'd say 90% of the time, we didn't even need to, like, we were all, it was a hive mind. We were just, but on this project, we were, should we just mention? Yeah. We were written, the genesis is we were working on a project, Dragnet 2 at Universal, and somehow, I still have no idea how John Hughes read our script for Dragnet, but he must have read it, because John Hughes had a production deal at Universal, and he read Dragnet 2, our script, and he
Never got made, by the way.
It never got made. It was a pretty damn funny
Thank
script.
you. You didn't miss it.
Yeah, you could have had a coma and not missed it. So, and he read it. He brought us in, and he said, "Guys, I liked your writing. What have you got for me?" And we went away, and we came back, and we pitched him Dumb and Dumber. And he said, "That's hilarious. Go ahead and write it. And if I like it, I will let you direct it." Remember? No one said anything. They didn't even give us water at meetings, you know. So we were like absolutely struck by that. So we went, we wrote it, and we came back and we handed it in. And at the same time that we handed it in, Hughes' production deal at Universal ended. And typical of Hollywood, if a director or a producer has a production deal at a studio, when that deal ends and they move on, all the things that they develop fall into the crevasse, they go into the vault. You know, they don't get developed anymore. And no other studio is going to make it, because they're like, we're not going to make a movie that you developed over there with them. And so it just died. You know, it disappeared, and we always thought it was hilarious. You know, and a few years later, you want to pick it up from there?
Well, I'll say when we went off and wrote it, because Hughes was really, he loved the idea. I remember he literally fell off his chair in the meeting, remember?
You reminded me of me, yeah.
He fell on the floor when the bird's head fell off in the and I remember he goes, "This is perfect. You guys are perfect for it, and you're going to direct it." By the way, I rarely remember who came up with what. I never remember, actually, because it's usually not one person. Usually it's like somebody says something and it pushes you to another thing, and then somebody pushes it. But he came up with the bird's head falling off. and I do remember thinking, this is going to be huge.
I wish you told me that.
Yeah, but anyway, so it got stuck there, and it was probably 3 to 4 or 5 years. We wrote it, by the way, because we were so inspired, 3 weeks. We went off, we wrote it on Cape Cod in 3 weeks. And it was 24 hours a day. You know, we'd get up, we'd write all day, we'd take a walk in the afternoon, we eat dinner, write all night, go to bed, get up in the morning, maybe take a walk. You know, 3 straight weeks. We rented a little house, and that's basically it. And then, you know, when Jim got involved, Jim Carrey, of course, he added a lot of little lines that were fantastic. But it was basically that script for 5 years, and the whole town shot it down.
Well, 3 times. It went around the town 3 times, and everyone turned it down. And they have what's called coverage, where every studio someone there would read the script and type a little description of it and say approve or like yes or no, and it got to no's all the way down the line. So we changed the title and sent it out 2 more times. So it had 2 different other titles.
Well, we had heard that some agent said, "I'm not going to give my client a script called Dumb and Dumber. He'll fire me." And so we changed it to "A power tool is not a toy." It sounded dumb but cooler. and then they all read it. They actually did.
And turned it down again. So we said, okay, and so the last one was Go West. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So and they turned it down again. So we had 3 times turned down. It would be like yeah.
It's only because Jim Carrey read it and wanted to do it, and he was just getting hot because he made Ace Ventura, which wasn't out yet, but the studio knew they had something there. But I remember someone calling me, and we got turned down by hundreds of actors, no exaggeration. And and I remember someone called me. They said Jim Carrey wants to do it. I said, who's that? They said he's the white guy from In Living Color. I said, he'd already been passed on by guys in Burger King commercials. Seriously, we saw a guy in a Burger King commercial. He said, that guy. How about that guy? We sent it to him, passed. It's insanity. And by the way, if you're out there and you're a writer or trying to get a movie to get it made, and you get like these, rejection after rejection after rejection. Just keep the faith, because these people are idiots. and what I later found out, because I'd run into actors who would pass on us, and they'd say like, hey, how come you never offered me a movie? I said, well, I did offer you Dumb and Dumber. And they're like, I never saw it, never heard of it. Their agents never give it to them, but then they say they pass. So you think all these actors are passing, very few are seeing them. The agents are passing, and you have to get around those guys.
Did that even begin to answer your
creative flow?
question?
Then it sounds like you have a very natural creative flow when you guys were writing together.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
3 weeks. I mean, that's
particularly
incredible.
those 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I remember us sitting around just laughing our asses off for 3 straight weeks, thinking, and we were inspired because John Hughes, who was the comedy guy of the previous decade, was behind us. So we thought we have a real chance here. So we just dove in, and we didn't come up until we were done.
Do you remember as you were writing if there were any particular jokes or sequences that you were concerned wouldn't register with audiences, but you really wanted to keep them in? Anything in particular where you're like, are they going to go for
I
this?
think
Is
the
this too
toilet
much?
thing, the toilet thing, we didn't know. We thought it was hilarious because up to that point in film history, when someone went in the bathroom, the door shut. That was the end of it. And even if you heard somebody peeing, like the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams, God bless them, who passed away last week, by the way, one of the greatest of all time. They'd done like, somebody peeing in the other room and you could hear it, and that was enough. But we're having a guy on the toilet, letting it rip. We thought, this is very funny to us, but audiences might find it to be too much. We weren't sure.
We had written a bunch of things. We had been hired for rewrites as well. We'd been sort of making our living being hired to do rewrites, but nothing had been produced necessarily, and so we had nothing to lose by what we were putting down. Like we weren't in the system yet to know what you couldn't do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why we weren't intentionally being transgressive with anything. We thought we just said, let's do this because it's making us laugh, and we didn't have the experience to know maybe you can't do that, maybe you shouldn't do that.
But we also had been for years doing all these rewrites, and we were executive pleasers. Like if they said do this, we do it, which is never good because they never know what they really want. And you could do exactly what they want. You hand it in, you're like, they're gonna love this. I just did exactly what they want. And they're like, because they don't really know. We're the guys. You have to convince them that what we're doing is better than what they think we should do, which is what we started doing. Because I remember we would argue about this. I always wanted to go, I was like, fuck that. I don't care that the guy wants that. I don't like that idea.
This is what they want.
But it's not good. It's like I'd rather lose, with our own stuff than like trying to please somebody else and it doesn't work, and then you fail and you didn't even do your best because you did what they want, and that's what we learned. But it was, we pushed it, and a lot of people thought at that time. I know this was a PG movie, PG-13, by the way, and it's not that crazy. But then they were like, oh wow, you guys are really going overboard. You can't do this. Let's just give it a shot.
I do remember the first cut was like 2 hours 40 minutes.
No, 3 hours.
Okay, yeah, it was long. And I think Jim Carrey's manager, Jimmy Miller, was sitting next to me. And,
No, that wasn't that one. I don't
Okay.
think, or maybe it was.
It was.
But
It was one of the first.
The assembly, this is our first movie. We don't know what we're doing. We have an editor. He gave us an assembly, and I'm like, okay. He goes, he put it all together on his own, and he kept everything in, and then we're going to go through it. And normally, as I've learned since, you go through it and then trim it down, then show it to people. But we didn't know, so we called like 50 of our friends. We went to Ocean Avenue screening room, and like our best friends. And I thought, look, we're going to show you everything. You guys tell us what's good. It's 3 hours, 40 minutes.
And to say that the toilet scene was a little longer is not exaggerating. It was quite a bit longer, and when it was done, 5 minutes into it, Jimmy Miller, he turned to me and I've never seen a man more ashen. He goes, "You're cutting that, right?" I said, "All of it. We're cutting all of it."
I remember we walked out, one of our best friends, Timmy Sheehan, we're still good friends with him. We've known him forever. He comes walking out, and my brother said, "What'd you think?" He goes, "The truth?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Worst movie of all time." And my brother goes, "Fuck you." He goes, "No, fuck you." 3 hours and 40 minutes. What the fuck are you thinking? It's our best friends. Nobody was not kind. And we're like, "We'll cut it down. We'll show it again." I've never shown a movie over 2 hours since. Beyond pissed.
Is there anything specifically that was cut from that longer version that you just heat got cut, a scene or something got lost? No.
Everything lost was lost for a reason.
In fact, in those days, videos and all that, they would have the director's cut later, which is just a money grab by the studio. They just wanted to sell new videos. They've already sold them all, or CDs, whatever they were, and DVDs or whatever. And they had the director's cut, and they would say, "Put some more stuff in." I said, "Yeah, but I would have kept it in if I wanted it." And they just give us a couple, and so we could sell it again. All right. And occasionally, I'll see this. It'll end up on TV on some streaming service where, for whatever reason, they have the director's cut. It's never as good. It sucks. It's embarrassing because we have things in there that we cut for a reason.
All of that stuff, all the extra stuff, we cut for a reason in that version that's out there now.
Can you recall as you were writing it, because now that you mentioned, obviously, Jim Carrey came in later, as you were writing it, did any names get thrown out? Did you have any guiding sort of ideas as to, during that process, who might play who or anything like
We
that?
went through literally 100 or 200.
I don't think he means in the casting. He means that when we were
Oh.
writing, were we thinking of actors while we were writing it?
Right.
I have an answer, but
Well, we used to always write for Bill Murray.
and John Candy. I mean,
Every character was Bill Murray, and then one day it occurred to us, there's only one Bill Murray, and he's only going to be doing one movie at a time. So maybe we should just open it up to other actors.
But I will also say that we very intentionally, we watched a few, and I never hear people say this about Dumb and Dumber, but we watched a few Road to movies, Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, and Dumb and Dumber is a Bing Crosby, Bob Hope road movie, and I've never seen it in a review mentioning it's two guys on the road backstabbing each other for the girl, for Dorothy Lamour, and so that was sort of guiding us too, was that dynamic of two good friends just out for each other because they want the girl,
And then you end up with Jeff Daniels, who I think is just incredibly inspired casting in this, considering, he had been, for the most part, a dramatic actor, but he'd shown some comic sensibilities in Something Wild and Purple Rose of Cairo, but never quite as zany as he was in this kind of wacky. How did that come about?
Something Wild. Something Wild is still one of my all-time favorite movies. Election night, I watched Something Wild this year. I decided to get everything off my mind. And I watched Something Wild when I want to feel good. I like everything about it. I like the look. I like the performances. Ray Liotta's first movie, I think, her first big starring role. Melanie Griffith. And Jeff Daniels, and I just thought he was hilarious in that, even though it's not really a comedy. And that came out in '86. This got made in '94, and I just fell in love with the guy. So when I wanted him, but we couldn't get it made with him. We needed someone like a Jim Carrey. And then when Jim came along, I told the studio I want Jeff Daniels. There was absolutely no way. He's not a comic actor. I was like, I don't know what that means. You're not a comic actor. He did Purple Rose of Cairo, which is a comedy, and he's hilarious, and he's not writing this stuff. He's a great actor. He's going to come in and play it. And I believe any great actor could do comedy or drama. But they fought us, and then finally they mentioned anybody but him. They wanted a comic guy, and I don't want to mention the names because I don't want to be mean. But we didn't want them. And finally, I asked Jim, I said, Jim, will you please do me a favor, read with Jeff Daniels? And they read a couple scenes, and Jim came out of there, he goes, that guy scares the shit out of me. He goes, he's got me on my heels the whole time. It's like a boxing match. He goes, that's gotta be the guy. He's pushing me in places I never get pushed. And they did that the whole time, and they were very tight. And here's the other kicker. I don't know, you probably don't recall, but at that time, this movie cost $16 million to make. And because Ace Ventura came out and started doing better and better every week while we were negotiating with them, Jim ended up getting $7 million, which was the highest amount ever paid to a comic actor, and of the 16. And the studio, Jim said he wanted Jeff. The studio did not want Jeff, so they offered him $50,000, and he took it. Never pushed back. Didn't ask for 51. He just wanted to do the movie, and he was.
His representatives did not want him to do it. They did everything they could to get him to drop out. They absolutely didn't want him to. He was tenacious about sticking with it. Yeah.
Well, by the way, can I just say, because I haven't seen this with the crowd in a long time, and you guys are unbelievable crowd. Probably the best crowd I've ever watched today. That was very exciting.
Every laugh you laughed at, and most of the lines you repeated before they got there. Yeah.
It was better than the premiere because
they didn't know the movie.
Well, also the premiere, I remember Bob Shea.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Shea introduced. He was the head of New Line, and God bless him, he made the movie, and I'm eternally grateful. But he got up there and he said, this is what he said. He was introducing the movie, and he said, "By the way, I just want everybody here to know I went to Columbia University. I did not get in the movie business to make this."
Enjoy the show.
I swear to God, he goes, "But here it is, let's go." My father came up to me after, he goes, "I want to punch that guy in the head." Dad, he's the only guy that would make a movie with you. I don't give a fuck. He's a fucking asshole. Please stay away from him. He wanted to give him a slap for introducing the movie that way. But anyway, the audience, it was an industry audience also, and they didn't know, it's not like you got. This was awesome. It was just so much fun to see it, and I thank you all.
Loving fans. A lot of people have not seen this in a theater. They've seen it on VHS, starting with that, because we came out just at the time of VHS and rentals and everything like that. So it's just lovely you're all here, and it's lovely to hear you all laughing the way you are in person.
And
Thank you.
I was also reminded tonight how great Lauren Holly was in this movie. She is perfect. I was looking at her her reactions, it is a tough job to go up against those two and react properly. And everything she did, it was perfection right across there. And she was just the perfect person at the perfect time. And I don't think she gets enough credit for this movie.
Give it up for yourself for being such a loud audience, seriously. We love our audience. I have a question, and this might be more of a question for you, Peter, but one of the elements that I love to reconnect with when I revisit your films are the soundtracks. I love the use of, at that time, contemporary bands. I love Ivy and There's Something About Mary, Crash Test Dummies in this. I love what you did with Devotchka and the Three Stooges. What is your role in that process? And is there ever conversation in the writing process about the introduction of music?
Very rarely in the writing, but my favorite part of making a movie is putting the music in by far. That's the best time. The hardest part is writing the script. Shooting, it's fun. You're having a good time. Editing, it's a ball. You're seeing it come together. But when you lay that music in and you see it pop, the joy you feel is like, I can't even explain it. So I keep track of songs all year round. I have a music supervisor named Tom Wolf and Manish Ravel, two guys. They're at Aperture. And they send me music year round. They'll send me little 6 to 8 songs, and on my walks I'll be listening to them and I'll think, oh, that could go here, that could go there. But it is my favorite thing. And then of course you get to work with Todd Rundgren, who did the music for this, who's one of my all-time favorites. So I just took a stab. I said, who do you want to be the composer? And they mentioned all the big composers. And I was like, I'd like to get someone like Todd Rundgren or David Byrne or someone like that. And Todd did it. Todd did it, and he was fantastic. Although we had one thing, which I'll tell you.
Well, it's interesting before you. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, go
tell your story. Sorry.
I shouldn't tell it anyway.
No, shame on me. They'll never forgive me.
No, good cut off. What happened? First of all, this movie's not as good without Todd Rundgren. Todd Rundgren. First, we got a lot of music because of Todd Rundgren. and Todd Rundgren laid it in, the timing, everything was perfect. But Todd's like, you know, he's a musician, he's, you know, a superstar. He's somebody, you know, and we were on the last day of editing it, and Todd's in the room with my brother and I, and we're going through the, you know, editing of the movie, and we're on the last day, we have to cut it. We have to lock it today, and we're arguing about one scene. I don't remember what it was, but do we keep this or do we cut it? What do we do? And finally, Todd's been with us for a month, and he's just sitting there being, you know, doing the music thing. And I said, Todd, what do you think? Would you keep it or get rid of it? He goes, you're asking me? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, if you're asking me, I cut 2/3 of the movie. And I was like, okay. And Bobby and I, fucking asshole. And on the way out, that day, I pulled Todd aside. I said, hey, Todd, fuck. He goes, what? I go, do you know we're locking today? Why would you say that? That's not nice. He goes, no, I'm sorry. I this isn't, you know, come on, man. This isn't my kind of movie. I don't understand this kind of movie. I was like, yeah, well, it's going to be a big movie, and you're going to be proud your name's associated with it. He goes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult you. I said, okay, that was but the movie is better because of Todd. But he, you know, it's like, you know, Todd's an artist, and this is, you know, this isn't, you wouldn't expect Todd to be doing this. He was slumming, you know. But it was kind of him too.
I was just going to add that it was interesting to me before I asked that question that we've already brought up John Hughes and Jonathan Demme, and I was just wondering if they had an influence watching those films and how they use music and their soundtracks, especially Something Wild, which has an incredible soundtrack, if that served to inform sort of your...
Absolutely. Positively, that movie influenced me in more ways than any other movie ever, Something Wild. Because of the music, for one thing. The music's incredible. I love the look. In fact, when we were making this, we called the DP of that Tak Fujimoto, and I was like, hey, because I loved it. It's real. It's colorful. It's real. It's the real world. You know, it doesn't have like Route 66 stuff. It looks like real stuff. And I called him and I said, you know, we're doing a movie. Would you do it? And he goes, what's it called? I said, Dumb and Dumber. He said, no, I won't do it. Okay, well, thanks for taking my call. We get turned down by a lot of people, as you know.
Well, Sam, you got the mic. I'd love to turn it over to the audience if anyone has any questions. Go right here in the front row.
Let me make sure that I get the mic to you, just so we can get your sound for the camera.
This movie has so many lines. I've memorized them all. I was just curious as far as the creation of it, if in the writer's room, was some of it started from lines? Like, to me, it seems like there's a bunch of vignettes that are just hilarious, and there's all these different parts. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, is that created from maybe a joke that you started with, or do those just come out further down the road?
Well, my experience of it is the movie has lines that have been repeated now and that are in the zeitgeist. You know, we could not have told you when we were writing it. We wouldn't have said, "Oh, that's one that's going to be." No, we did. Am I off on this?
The head falling off.
But no, I mean we weren't aware of what was going to hit. We weren't aware that it was going to be a hit. I mean, we were writing this thing. It's the history of the movie is something that wasn't remotely in our. We would have to have been, you know, psychics to know what was going to happen. So there was, I mean, we had lines that we thought were funny, we'd giggle over and things like that, but there was nothing we said like, oh, this is a, you know.
And when we did test screenings of this, you know, so you're telling me there's a chance. 0 laughs. A lot of smiles, like, you know, people would smile, but they weren't howling at it. And then the studio said, you gotta cut that. They didn't laugh. I was like, no, but it's not a huge laugh. It's like it grows on you. And they're like, yeah, but you don't have time to grow on it. It has to work that day. And I'm like, yeah, but they go, listen to it, because they record the sound when you're doing a test thing. I said, yeah, but look at all their faces. They're all smiling. They're just not laughing. And then they said, okay. And then a minute later, he goes, so what was all this 1 in a million talk? Even less laughs. So they're like, you gotta at least cut that. I said, no, it'll grow on you. It'll have time to grow on you. These are bad. Thank God we fought him, because, you know, we wouldn't know. I would have even forgotten about that. But we were like, no way, we're not cutting that. It's too funny. And even though it's not a huge laugh, it's just funny.
So right in the middle there.
Hi, thank you so much for coming. I love this movie, and one thing I got the VHS to get signed afterwards, and when I was looking at it, I noticed the tagline is, "For Harry and Lloyd, every day is a no-brainer," and I was wondering if that was like an Easter egg for the famous film star Harold Lloyd.
Not,
Wow!
The answer,
Not that we were aware of.
Maybe by the marketing department. But we
No,
were,
I don't think so.
No, it's. But by the way, you reminded me of something. We did a test screening, and at the end, a person in the back raised his hand. They said, "Are you afraid that this is going to insult dumb people?" I was like, I don't think people identify as dumb. Hey, wait a second, I'm dumb.
Can you really insult a dumb person? You know?
Yeah, that was like.
Harry and Lloyd, we didn't. The only thing that was intentional about their names was Lloyd Christmas was because Lloyd was crazy about Mary. We thought that in his mind, he thought if they got married, then she'd be Merry Christmas. That was it. That wasn't our mind.
Look in the back. Let's see. Yeah, it's 3 back there. Back there. Sorry. Just pick it. It's okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, I think that one thing Dumb and Dumber does really well that a lot of other kind of slapstick comedies in the 90s and 2000s maybe didn't do so well is I think you guys did a really good job of having a movie with really dumb characters, but the script is still really smart. Do you think? Yeah, but like, would you say when you guys were writing it, is it just sort of like, oh, this would be so funny if they did that, or were there like little things you were doing to try to make sure the story was still cohesive and coherent?
That. We were always trying to do that, and in fact, there's the scene at the beginning when he's trying to talk Harry into going to Aspen, and all of a sudden Jim gets emotional, and he goes, "Come on, man, I don't have anybody, I don't have anything." And Jim Carrey's, an unbelievable actor, and he's actually crying. I'm like, look at him, oh my God. And he gets welled up immediately. And the studio called us like 2 days later and said, "What the hell is that scene? What are you doing? This is a big comedy." And I said, "Yeah, and you better remember in 2 minutes she's selling a dead bird to a blind kid in a wheelchair. So you better like him. You better like this guy or it all falls apart." And that's the truth. So no, we were always aware of, it's not just the gag, it's where it's coming from. You have to be okay with it. I mean,
What he said.
It's infused with a lot of heart. I mean, that's the thing. Amongst all the zaniness and the characters, there's friendship. There's scenes of friendship. There's a lot of heart in the film. There's a lot of heart in all your films, really, and that's part of the process too, right? And your writing is what you're saying.
They are best friends and best enemies. I mean, they're both, which is what makes them so much fun. They're in that respect, they're really kind of realistic in a weird sort of surreal way because they love each other and they will slap each other at the same time.
Was that part of the conversation though, as you're writing, is just kind of like taking a moment to go back and make sure that you were instilling some of that element that keeps it grounded and gives it heart?
Yeah, we wanted to feel like, when they break up, like Jim actually does, he gets emotional very easily. And he's like a child, and it makes you care, I think, more for them. If they had a breakup on the street, fuck you, I don't think you'd feel the same when he comes pulling back up. But you knew Jim was really hurting, so. Yeah.
I think somebody in Anaheim has got a question.
Yeah, we have a question from someone in Anaheim. That's all right.
There's a question here.
How about right over here, yes. Sam, you were going, oh, sorry. It is. So
Hi guys, thanks for coming out and doing this. I just wanted to say I've been watching this movie since I was 5 years old. My VHS player ate my tape when I was little. And I was just wondering, in your guys' opinion, of the guys, is there one that is dumb and one that is dumber? Or do you
What day is it?
Yeah.
I don't think so, but
Harry can read.
It's significantly that tiny little whatever.
But I just took that thing, Lloyd was dyslexic and actually maybe smarter in other ways. Sometimes Harry seems behind Lloyd. I always think of them completely equal.
When we were writing, there were moments where we would write the joke, we would write the stupid joke, and go, that's great. And then like an hour later or the next day, we're like, wait a minute, what if they said this after that?
Yeah.
And it was the stupid joke,
Yeah.
and that was always
Well,
such
for a long
pleasure.
time, the joke, the betting, I bet you I'll get you betting. And he goes, I'll give you 3-1 odds. He goes, nope, I'll give you 10-1. Nope, give you 20-1. All right, you're on. And for a long time, he goes, gotcha. And then after looking at the script for a while, I said, whoa, wait a second, no, he wouldn't get that. That's the joke. That's the joke on the joke. And so we were looking at that for quite a while before someone said, whoa, we have such an opportunity here, and those are always the best ones.
Well, I know you were joking, but I want to indulge your comedy. Anaheim hands only. And then, Sammy, go ahead and pick an Anaheim hand for a question.
We'll get everybody's question. I mean, there's no new show.
I just hear a
coming
lot of
here tonight,
folks
right?
say, me.
You got very bad.
Okay. Well, Mr. Yellin, Mr. Farrelly, first and foremost, on behalf of, I believe, everybody here, thank you for creating a classic of cinema comedy that will always last. It's only been 30 years effective tomorrow, but I feel this will last 300 years.
Thank you so
This
much.
is a classic of comedy, and well done.
I thought you were going to shoot us.
Absolutely not. Okay, please permit me, I have 2 questions. The first one is very quick, very simple to answer. Did you choose the Frida Cinema this evening in honor of Frida Felcher?
No, but I was very aware
That's good.
when Sammy contacted me and said it's called the Frida Cinema. I'm like, oh my God, it's a vowel away from Freda. This is fantastic.
Freda is his sister,
Freda's
believe
my
it or
sister.
not.
Freda, my sister.
Yeah.
And for years, I'm just going to say it. She didn't know what Felcher was or Felcher, and so
A lot of people don't,
A
so
lot of
they can
people-
look it up.
Right, but I would go home. We'd have dinner, and I had like a cousin who would come over, and we'd be eating. The whole family's eating dinner, and she goes, "I can't believe you named the character Freda Felcher." And like, I'm from an Orthodox Jewish family, and we're all sitting around, and I'm like, "Oh my God, she keeps saying felching," and then I realized they don't know what it means. It's totally fine. I can relax.
Question 2?
And the second question, it's always been of a great interest to me and my 2 dear friends who are here with me today, who we all love your movie. We've been watching it for at least the last 15 years on repeat, always getting a laugh. What was the #1 scene that took the most takes as possible, because you guys just couldn't stop cracking up each time it took place?
That's a good one. Unfortunately, this movie, because the studio, they didn't want Jeff Daniels, and they didn't want us directing it either, kinda. Like, they had this thing where they said, we could fire you in a week if anything happens. We're like, okay. So every time the phone rang, and it wasn't cell phones, it was like phones, we were like terrified. So I just remember, I don't remember laughing that much. I remember thinking, let's get through this. Let's get this thing made. One thing that happened was the scene where she comes down, where Lauren Holly comes down the skis and stops and sees him sitting there with his tongue stuck on the thing. Well, every time we do a take, we have to get her at the top of the mountain again. And we would put her in. At first, we have her in a chairlift, going like not too far up, and then coming down and doing it. But then we're like, we got to speed this up, so because she kept going by it or falling before she got there, something. And then finally, we put her on like a jet ski, what do you call it, like a snowmobile. And they would take her up and do it again. So one time, we must have done 15 takes of that, because she kept going by it, or this, we have it set up perfectly. She finally nails it, and she's just about to react, look over, and all of a sudden somebody in the back, one of the crew members goes, "Cut!" And there was this woman in makeup standing back there, this young girl, she was probably like, seriously like 20, and she was standing and she just, I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. I said cut so many times, I think she was anticipating it. She was cut, and Lauren stopped, what happened? Who said that?
Oh, no.
Don't worry about it, let's get going.
That woman became Catherine Bigelow.
So that was the scene that we did the most for that reason, but yeah.
Right on.
Yes.
I mean this sincerely. I have never watched a movie that has brought me as much joy as this one.
Aww.
Oh, thank you.
Beautifully written script. Honestly, it is an intelligent script. I think the dream sequence when Lloyd is falling asleep, I literally point to that as like a microcosm of male psychology. Like it just beautifully captures what happens in a man's mind.
Oh, I'm sorry, which scene?
The scene where he's falling asleep.
Fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Bruce Lee
Oh,
image,
yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, I've had those exact fantasies.
Every guy in here has.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite scene and my favorite movie. So my question is kind of a question and a half. For the three of you, what is your favorite scene, either watching it or writing it, and were there scenes that Jim and Jeff Daniels really liked?
I'll tell you, it's so small a moment, but I'll tell you my favorite joke, and it's just, you're gonna go like, really? But everyone has their own, like, I can't believe that apparently the big gulp joke is the most popular joke. We didn't write that. That was that those guys were standing there, and he just like said, get in there, and Jim improv that. So
We were in Colorado, and we're shooting that, and Jim goes in, and these people are just standing there with their big gulps, watching. And I realized there's a lot of color in this movie. You know? And I was like, hey guys, you want to get in the movie? They're like, yeah. I said, just come here. And I said to Jim, Jim, just talk to him on the way in or out. I had no idea what he was going to say. And I swear to God, and that was it. And those guys, we then gave them, we paid them for being extras, and they were just standing there watching. I said, we've done a few takes before. I said, let's get them in there and get Jim, and boom, 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 and then Jim did it. ESPN had, I think, top 10 favorite lines in Dumb and Dumber, and that was number 1.
I'll answer it. The whole ski date from beginning to end is like the thing that makes me laugh the most. But the favorite joke, which is in the ski date, and again, it just cracks me up. And it's when she says, oh, I've been having some problems with my family. I don't want to bore you with it. And he goes like, thanks. And the way he delivers that line, and then it just keeps going. That's my favorite joke.
That's up there with mine too, and I also love when he goes, when they get there and he says, "What's her name?" I don't know. I don't know. He goes, "No, it's Mary." I think it begins with an S, and it's snappy, slappy, slippy, slappy, swampy, and he actually gets to Swanson. Swampy, slippy, swappy, swammy, Swanson. Oh, here it is. Yeah, that kills.
He actually says Swanson.
Yeah. Yes. Right here, sure.
Thank you so much. It's an honor. Just 2 quick things. First of all, Lloyd Christmas did get a happy ending because in real life, Jim Carrey and Lauren Holly got together and they got married.
Yeah.
And second of all, I just I want to say Lynn Shay makes a cameo in this movie.
Yeah.
Was she offered the role because of her brother or because you guys casted her?
She was, Lynn Shay is one of the best and greatest actors I've ever worked with. She's been in a bunch of our stuff. She was, in Something About Mary, she was in Kingpin, and she's a god. But that movie, being our first movie, Bob Shay said, hey, can you put my sister in the movie? That's Bob Shay's sister. And we were like, sure, of course, you kidding? Absolutely. But we were like, this sucks. We have to put somebody into it. We don't know who they are. And she came in and she was great. But then the next movie was Kingpin. It's not with Bob Shay. And someone said, hey, Lynn Shay wants to read for the role. And I was like, okay. you know, I didn't know what she was capable of, because she'd been kind of pushed into the first one, and I didn't take her seriously. And she came in and read for, in the second one, for the landlady, you know, Woody's landlady, and blew us away. We were howling. You say when we can't stop laughing. She came in to read for that role, looking exactly like she would look in the movie. She did all the makeup, came in, I was like, who's this? That's Lynn Shed. You know, and she came in and killed us. And so from that point forth, we were like, okay, we gotta get her something about Mary, and now she's, you know, an icon of like horror movies and stuff. She's phenomenal. But yeah, she was pushed upon us on that first one, and I didn't understand how great she was until later. I always actually feel a little bad we didn't give her more to do with the first one, but she was awesome.
How about a back row? Is there a back row question? The very let's go to the end of the theater, the beautiful Frida Theater.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for coming down here. We really appreciate it. This is fantastic. Congratulations on your Oscar, too. Multiple Oscars. This movie has kind of a fun connection to another one of my favorite movies, The Shining. You filmed in a hotel in Estes Park that inspired Stephen King's The Shining. There's kind of a semi-famous story of Jim Carrey trying to stay the night in one of the rooms and apparently freaking out and running out.
You know
I was wondering if you had any more details on that, or just any other haunted activities.
Yes, we shot it at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, and that is the Shining Hotel. It was incredible, and I do remember a lot of crew members being spooked. I don't remember Jim having a thing. Honestly, I don't remember him having, but I remember lots of crew members being spooked and feeling, you know, the place had a vibe to it. That was, there's a darkness there. Okay. No, we had such a ball. It was, you know, we were having a good time. But yeah, I don't remember Jim's thing, but I do remember that crew members were kind of freaked out being there. We were only there for a few days, week or something. Yeah.
We have time for a couple more. Right over here.
Hi, thank you guys for coming here as well, and good crowd and everything. So my question is, the first time watching it on the big screen, which is phenomenal for us, I barely noticed that Jim Carrey had a bandage over his middle finger towards the end of the movie. Do you know what the story was, why he had that bandage?
No. I never noticed it.
I didn't notice it either,
but by the way, I'll tell you one thing that happened. He got his gallbladder out halfway through the movie.
Ooh.
Yeah, he had a gallbladder attack, and we're like halfway through, and this thing's rolling. We got like a good movie going here, and all of a sudden they say, Jim's in the hospital. I said, why? They said, something's going on. His stomach blew up last night. I'm like, oh my God, this is figures. You know, this is going to be a disaster. And he went in. They took his gallbladder out, and he was working. I think we shut down for like 4 days. That's it. And this next scene we had to do was the one where they're on the picnic table and Jeff's trying to strangle him. Yeah, he had just gotten his thing out, and it's like he had arthroscopic. You know, they didn't, the old days they used, you know, get the gallbladder. Now they just put a couple of holes in you and did it, and they got it out. But yeah, so we had to be delicate with him for a couple of weeks. Yeah, but I never noticed the finger. And did anyone else notice the Band-Aid?
Yeah.
What? And where do you see that? What scene?
He's handcuffed to the bed? Yeah.
Really?
His whole middle finger strapped to the bed.
Interesting.
Didn't know that.
By the way, there's another, like when we first shot it in the cut, when he hits her with the snowball, and she comes up, and the shot was that she had blood coming out of her nose, and nobody was laughing at it, and they said, what are you doing here? So there's an optical, I don't know if you can tell, but we know, there's an optical where we covered the blood coming out of her nose. So it's the shot is
And
there.
by the way, that might be my favorite. So you asked my favorite. That's probably my favorite. Because we were hoping it would work the way it did, but it also could go the other way. Everybody's like, what are you doing? But originally, like you said, when she came up, right when he hits her with the snowball, the place erupts. Big laughs. We're doing a test screening, but then she comes up, looks up, we had blood coming down here. And No more laughs. We learned a lot that day. And like it's funny until somebody gets hurt. And now it's not funny, so we were like, well, what do we do? So yeah, they got rid of it, and now she comes up and everybody continues laughing. So it was a good lesson for us.
And God bless Chris Greenberry who edited the movie, because that edit, that cut of throwing it, it looks like he's throwing it right into her face, and he wasn't. I mean he was throwing it past her, but the way it was cut with the sound effects, it's so sharp.
And the sound effects, the sound effect people are just like geniuses. They try all these different things, and they must have given us 50 sound effects. I'm like, no, not that. It's too mushy. You hear like a snowball. It's this, that. And then finally he's got one that just cracked us up. And we're like, what is that? And this is what he did. He put in Hank Aaron's 715th homer, the crack of the bat. And he put it over the bush sound that he had before, so right when it hit her, it's like, it looks like it hurts. And that was the sound effect that he put in that got us laughing.
That's an exclusive.
It's a fun fact. Fun fact. We don't do this a lot. We can get more. I mean, we're in no rush if it's okay. I don't want someone walking out of here like,
I got nowhere to go.
I had my hand up for, 2 hours and they never picked me.
No, that's bad. We'll keep going.
First of all, I really wanted to say thank you so much for coming. This and There's Something About Mary are two of my all-time favorite comedies.
Thank you.
And I was really curious because you mentioned this was a really hard sell and like hard production. What was it like compared to the production of There's Something About Mary? Was that like harder of a sell, or was that like slightly easier because you had a big hit with this one?
I've never had an easy sell, ever. I'm serious. And I tell people who are trying to make movies, they're like, so hard. It's like, yeah, it's hard. It's Spielberg has some movies that can't get made, believe it or not. There are movies that are like, nah, we just don't want to do that.
He tried to make this, I think.
It's not easy. The next movie we did was Kingpin, and that was hard because everybody was like, well, that was a Jim Carrey movie. That wasn't you. We wrote and directed it, but that wasn't you. And then Mary was hard because Mary was pushing it way big. And it's an R-rated comedy. Nobody was doing R-rated comedies then. We're at Fox, which was a little soft at the time. And they were like, yeah, we'll do it if you cut the zipper, and you cut the hair gel, and you cut every funny thing in it. And then we'll do it. I think, I don't want to do that. And they were like, I said, let's shoot it. You may be right, by the way. There was a good chance they were right, that the hair gel could easily be over, crossing the line, like people might be like, you could lose half, the whole audience, guys could be, and women could be grossed out, it could be over. But I said, let us just shoot it, and then we'll when we're shooting it, we'll have a way out. If it doesn't work, we'll be able to cut it, and you won't know it. So we shot it with her hair up and then her hair down. We did all sorts of things, but they were like, nope, no, we don't believe it can work. I said, well, what do you care? We're going to have a thing. It's the same budget. Nope, they fought us for probably 6 months, 8 months. They were like, if you cut them, you got to go picture. And I don't want to make it. I don't want to make it if you can't do the best jokes in it. So it wasn't easy to get made. Yeah.
As you can tell, the stick to your gunness of making a movie, it behooves you, because to trust your instincts, and don't trust theirs. Because also the way they keep their job is pushing their thumb into your production with their notes and whatever. And if it's a success, they're like, that was my production. But for filmmakers, trust your instinct, please.
Yeah, there was always, when we get done with Mary, and it was a big hit, the next thing the studio came to me and said, we got your next movie, because I never know what's next, so I kind of like see what comes up, but they go, Alvin and the Chipmunks. I was like, I swear to God, I go, I don't want to do Alvin and the Chipmunks. They said, it's going to be huge. I said, I don't care. That's not my strength. That's like, but it's going to be a big hit. I don't care. It's not, and it tells you a lot, like, you really got to run your own life when it comes to this stuff. They don't know what's best for you. I know what I could be good at, and Alvin the Chipmunk, it wouldn't, it's not, the movies turned out great, it's fine, but that's not using what I do to the best, so I didn't want to do it.
Do you want to announce the reboot of Alvin and the Chipmunks? Are you directing it now and for Netflix? Or?
10 years from now, Pete Farrelly, Alvin and the Chipmunks. We had more hands.
Quick question,
Yeah.
tied to that.
Yeah, sorry.
Tied to sticking with your gut as filmmakers. Is that how you approach comedy as well, in the sense of, we're making each other laugh, so that works, or are you also thinking about, because comedy obviously is subjective, so if it works for you guys and you guys are laughing your asses off, is that what you proceed with, or is it,
That's all we got to go on.
1,000%, and it's why I always have written with partners. You want to be in a room with other people, and you want to be throwing it back and forth. It's hard work, but it's delightful because you're with friends and you're just throwing jokes. It's like when you're out with your friends and you're just making each other laugh. You're on a roll. That's a pleasure. I admire and can't believe how there are writers and writer-directors who write comedies all on their own and just trust that. That blows my mind. And even my favorite director, Billy Wilder, never wrote a script by himself. He always wrote with a collaborator. Because you've got
Raymond Chandler.
It's back and forth, and that's the fun of it too, because it just keeps getting shaped as it rolls between.
And
the
it
two.
is the hardest time, writing the script. We do argue. You said, do you have arguments? Yeah. It's like, I like this, you like that. Well, I don't like that. Well, I don't like this. And usually when you're at that point, neither is right. There's something wrong. And if you beat it out enough, you're going to realize both of you have a point, and there's something else that you haven't thought of that's the best. But
And you both go, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll know it when you hear it, but you can't,
All right, let's get,
Very, very back. I keep going to the very back row.
I'll get to the back, yeah. I'll work my way around.
Hi, we definitely love all your work, and we're very happy you folks came. I have a question. Congratulations on Dear Santa. Do you have some info to give, since you have a brand new film out for the audience?
Do I have some what?
There's just like a bit of a story for Dear Santa.
Well, but Dear Santa is my brother's movie. He did it. I wrote the script with Ricky Blitt. We had a great time. But while he was doing that, I was off doing another movie. So, I love that movie. I thought he did a great job. But I wasn't ever on the set of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just finished a movie with Mark Wahlberg and Sacha Baron Cohen and Paul Walter Hauser. Everybody know him? And Eric Andre. And it was a ball. It's called Balls Up. Balls Up. Yeah. You'll be hearing
Sponsored by the Testicle Association of America.
It starts with these guys invent a condom that covers the testicles as well as the penis, called the Balls Up. And take it from there.
Get back to us in 10 minutes.
Yes.
I know you had mentioned adding music was one of your favorite parts of the process. It might not be a part of the official soundtrack, but the toilet scene, where did those sounds come from?
Some genius who I don't know. There's a sound effects person, and I wish I could remember his name right now, because that was genius, especially the last. Because he's putting obviously the sound effects in after, Jeff's doing all the, and so he's got to match the sound to what he's looking like. It is art. And by the way, that was the first day, I've been out in LA for 10 years, and we finally getting a movie made, and my parents for 10 years were like, how are you living out there? I said, well, we sell scripts, and well, how come they don't make them? I thought, I don't know. But they go, and they pay you? I was like, yeah, they pay us, but they don't make them. No, they don't make them. And finally, we're getting one made, and that was the first day my parents were on the set, was when Jeff was on the toilet. And I remember them holding on to each other scared. What is this? I said, this is a joke that we're doing. They're like, how is that funny? It's like, you go to craft service, Mom. Go get some food.
And I hope and pray that sound effects editor who did that sequence has been dining out for 30 years on his work.
He also put in Henry Aaron's back. It's the same guy. It's like baseball. I should know him.
Find out.
I gotta find out.
Future.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you so much for making this movie. I think all of us here really love it and have been really touched with it over the years. So
Thank you.
first and foremost, thank you for that. I just wanted to ask a question. So my favorite characters are the female FBI agent and the female henchwoman. And I've always loved, just growing up, the fact that you had some really amazing roles for women in a male-centered driven comedy. And I just wanted to know, what was the casting behind those choices? What was the choices made for those women? Why did we have such powerful women in a male-driven comedy? Where did that come from?
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad you feel that way, because some people didn't, especially like we had, and I've told this story before, so I feel okay telling it, which is, Mariel Hemingway came in to read for the Mary role. And she came in and just walked in, she goes, "What is this?" I go, "What?" She goes, there's no role here. I was like, "Well, no, there's a role." There's nothing here. She goes, "Why would I do this?" I thought, she was like yelling at us. And I think we were like, okay, we better like, punch this up a little, She was annoyed that guys got all the laughs and the women weren't getting laughs. And that kind of shook us up when you have an actress come in and like rip into you. And God bless her, because it made us think, but I'm glad you feel that way, because, we tried to make them. Karen Duff, who plays, Mental's sidekick, she's one of the great humans of all time. I don't know if you know her, but she's just an incredibly positive person. She's written a lot of books about living with, she has a chronic illness, and she's had it for like 30 years. And she's just the most positive person, and that's one of the great things about making this movie, is getting to know someone like her, like who we're still in touch with, who is just a magical human being. So I'm glad that you like that, because Karen, Duff, she couldn't be happier with having been in that movie. She calls me kind of, I'm so happy I was in that movie. So 30 years later, I had people come up to me the other day, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, now.
Well, tied to that too, thank you for that question. You and your brother have actually been recognized and lauded for your advocacy for inclusion of people with disabilities in your films. And can you talk a little bit about how
That started after this movie, because my friend, we grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of people with disabilities. I always say we were blessed to grow up in that. Like, I had two of my best friends, older brothers, had intellectual disabilities, but they hung with us. Like, they play hockey, basketball. They were like 3-4 years older than us, but they would hang with us. And I had a friend who was a quadriplegic in high school, broke his neck, and he was always in the mix. So we were constantly with people with disabilities, and yet in this movie there isn't anyone except the kid who's not he's not a disabled actor, which I would never do that. I wouldn't do that today. But at the premiere of this movie in Rhode Island, the first premiere we did, my friend Danny Murphy, who's a quadriplegic, came up to me and goes, "So you got nobody in here with a disability." Because 20% of the world is disabled. You get 0 people in it? And it woke me up. I felt horrible. And ever since then, we've been very aware of that. And it is 20%. 20% of the world has a disability. And you gotta, so I try to tell, like, our casting people, I say, when girlfriend enters room, don't think she's able-bodied. She could be hard of hearing, she could be blind, she could be in a wheelchair, she could be this, she could be that. Just like 20 years ago, if you had said girlfriend enters room, they would think white woman. They don't now. Like, girlfriend, I'm reading black women, white women, Asian women, everybody. I'm reading them all. We've gotten past that. They haven't with disability. They don't think like that. And we're really pushing hard to get people to start thinking that way, because when you see a movie and there's 0 people with disabilities in it, that's bullshit. That's a bullshit movie. That's not the world. So, we've tried to, but that was a wake-up call that Danny Murphy gave us, and we've tried to live by.
Hi.
Hi.
I love this movie so much, and I just want to say that. And I think the last time I watched it was actually recently. Me and my daughter were making my grandma's funeral arrangements, and I put it on, and it was just like during this somber time, just like cracking up at the same time, and it was awesome. She said she also watched it at school, which was really funny too, and cool. One of her teachers put it on.
I love that. That's
But,
awesome.
Yeah, my question is just like random, I guess, a random fact or that I heard. I think I've like Googled it too because I heard about it. But did Jim's tooth, like, was that removed for the film? Like it was already broken and then he got it removed for the film?
Correct.
Okay.
He had chipped his tooth when he was like 13, and they fixed it by putting some kind of
cap.
Was it a cap?
I think
Yeah,
so,
they put something, and so he said, but he went back in, got the thing removed, and so I don't know if it was a cap, because if it's a cap, you have to like saw it down to get the cap on.
Any dentists in the audience?
I think they put some like extension thing, because he grew up poor. Jim's family was really poor up in Canada, so I don't think he even could get a cap. I think they just put something in there, but they knocked it out for the movie. Yeah.
That's so cool.
That was his idea, like a lot of things. The haircut. Yeah.
Wasn't the haircut his?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, his idea.
And Jeff's too. Jeff came. I said, "What's your hair gonna be like?" He goes, I just thought like that. All right.
Also, Jeff before every take would shake his head really hard, like shake the sense out of his friggin' head before he did a take.
Part of the joy of this, I'm going to go back to you, but part of the joy of making this movie was those two guys love each other. Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels are completely different people, and they love each other. And Jeff has such an admiration for Jim, and vice versa, that Jim needs a lot when you're making a movie. Jim's brain is he has a million ideas. Jeff's like quiet. He's just sitting back there doing this thing, and I would come over to him occasionally, like, "Hey man, I hope you don't think I'm not giving you enough attention." No. Jim needs this. Stick with Jim. It might have been his way to keep me away from him, but they loved each other, and it was like they have such respect for each other. It's just fun to see them together. I'm sorry, you were saying?
Sure, I gotta say, one of the joys for me is inviting guests who've made films to share their films years later with an audience and have these interactions. So just curious, raise your hand if you were born after 1994. That's awesome. So what's it like, 30 years later to be able to share a film with a full house?
This is unbelievable. It's a great, and the crowd particularly, like, I have not enjoyed this movie as much, I don't know, in one screening ever. Because, when you go to a test screening, you're a nervous wreck. And, they did laugh a lot, but I was sitting there like, please keep going. It could end, But to sit here with people like you guys, this has just been a ball. That's why I want to make sure everybody gets a chance.
Also, I feel like we're among friends here, because all of you are people who pretty much love this movie already. So to have you all be here, and again, for everyone to hear each other laughing together is very different than in a living room with your family, which is beautiful. But this is what movies are. This is what a movie theater is about.
When I get on planes, and I was on one today, I'm wearing this because I was in Portland, Maine this morning, believe it or not. I came in this morning on an early flight, and it's freezing back there. What was I saying? So when I get on a plane and someone's, it's rare now that people strike up conversations. It used to be, people would, but they don't now. But if someone, this is probably like 2 years ago, I had a woman and she, she talking, "What's up? What are you doing?" "I'm a writer." "What do you write?" "I have lots of stuff." Anything I would have heard of. Yeah. I said, "She what?" I said, "Dumb and Dumber." And she goes, "No." She goes, "No." I said, "You never heard of Dumb and Dumber?" Now I'm fucking arguing with her. I go from extremely modest to "fuck you." You haven't heard of it? She goes, "No, I never heard of it." I said, "You've never heard those words together, dumb and dumber?" She goes, "No." She's just like a 45-year-old woman. And I was like, they're on headlines, the politicians, Dumb and Dumber, out every week in the Post or something. I don't know. She goes, I watch a lot of movies. I said, "And you never?" I couldn't let her. So annoyed with her. You fucking liar.
Did you get her number?
Sure.
First of all, thank you guys for being here, and thank you for making this film. I adore it. I've seen it in both English and Italian now, and I've noticed that there are different jokes in the Italian version that are very different than the English version.
Really?
Yeah. I can't think of any that are even going to translate well into English from Italian, but I guess I wanted to know, how much of a hand do you guys have as writers in the foreign translation of a movie?
Not even a finger.
You can tell because those jokes are not your jokes.
I wonder if they're in the Italian version, if it's subtitled with like an Italian.
Oh, sometimes do they have different like actors? Oh, that's the worst.
Oh, that's terrible.
But yeah. Wow, no, we don't. The only thing I ask is that they send me a poster, one sheet. I like the foreign ones.
I remember the Italian ones, like schemo e poi schemo or something like that.
Yes.
Hello, fellas. Just want to say thank you, like everybody else, for making this film. This is actually one of my childhood favorite movies of all time. I remember loving Summer Vacation whenever they would play that thing once a week on TBS Superstation. Everybody remember that? And that movie and Goodfellas are the only two movies that doesn't matter what point in the movie it is, I will sit there and I will watch it all the way through.
Wow, thank you very much.
And also, again, this is such a 90s movie, but yet it still holds up even now. That really is what shows you how great of a movie it is at. It wasn't, the 90s movie, but it was just a great movie in general. Just my question is, you said you worked with Todd Rundgren, and that's usually not his movie. Great soundtrack no matter what. Too Much of a Good Thing is still one of my favorite songs of all time. Whoa! Yep, there it is. Just to wrap it up, was there just any song that either Todd Rundgren or the studio or yourselves just couldn't get the rights to that you just really wanted in an otherwise impeccable soundtrack?
I don't remember that on this one. I've had that on other things. We did a thing called Hall Pass like 15 years ago, and there was a thing between scenes. We took that thing, I think it's from Law and Order, where you go dum dum, dum dum, and we were like, okay, let's put that in. And Mike Post wrote that. He's done a lot of like soundtracks or whatever TV stuff. $250,000, 2 notes, dum dum. So we're like, fuck that, we'll do our own dum dum. So we come up with dum dum. Not funny. Nobody laughed. I'm telling you, we had dum dum, dum dum. His thing, hilarious. People howling in test audience. We have dum dum. They don't know what that is. So we paid him $250. We put it back.
Wow.
Yeah, we put it back. Sometimes you get like a big song where they want like $300,000, $400,000, and like, I'd rather have, $20,000 songs, and so it's only in that way. But you usually you can get the rights. It's just how much it's going to cost you. And if you are a filmmaker, you should call Tom Wolfe and Manish. They're Aperture. That's the name of he's our music supervisors, because the deals they get are unbelievable. They are well known in the business, and they'll come to us where they say they want like $60,000, and we're like, oh, we can't afford it because we don't have enough there. And then they'll come back and say, yeah, we got them for $6,000. I'm like, what? How? It's like, we're gonna put them in another thing because they have so many things going on, and they cut deals with them. But yeah, so you need someone like that in your corner.
Well, I'll close with this, because clearly you guys have, do you want to take a couple more? It's up to you. We'll take a couple more. Yeah, let's do it.
I think pretty much everyone's asked a question on at this point.
Go ahead, right with the camera.
Yeah, I just want to say I saw this film 30 years ago in the theaters. It's been my favorite ever since. I'm a film critic now. It's still my favorite comedy. But I wanted to ask you, out of the things that were improvised, was there anything else that kind of blew you away?
Well, no, the improvised stuff was like Jim, like when they're running up the stairs, Jim just goes, I'll race up the stairs. That wasn't in there. And he just grabs her, pulls her down, and goes up. You know, there were, I'm trying to think of the other things. There were.
Most annoying sound.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's right. That's not in the script. He just does it and lets it rip. He had a bunch, you know, Jim.
We'd always shoot the script, and then if Jim said, "Let me try this," because I remember when before we even shot, he said, "I want to do. I'd like you to put this and that. I want to do the most bizarre kiss ever."
Yeah.
So that was that. But if he came to you and said, "Let me try this," you always let him have a shot.
Yeah, of course, any actor ever. Like I always ask, please do what we've written first, and then go nuts. Try whatever you want to try, because it's, of course, like, you know, Brett Favre. That was the fifth take, and all of a sudden he's like, you know, tries that one. Awesome, you know. So you want that. Yeah.
We write the lines and on the page, and then the actors come in and they do what a great actor does. They lift it up and they turn it. They take it and turn it into something bigger and greater, and it's so. It just feels so exciting to see them do their stuff and make us look good with their genius, you know.
Yeah, and you can't. And I also learned a lot about, like, you know, because we got shot down by so many people, and literally, I mean literally hundreds, and you know, guys doing Burger King commercials who were shooting us down left and right, and yet we end up with Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. Like, I learned something. Like, if you get everything that you want, it's going to be as good as you could have imagined it. But if you don't get everything you want, and you let the universe help out, it might be better. And that's the truth. And I think of that all the time. When something doesn't go my way, I think, okay, let's see what's happening here. Maybe something better is going to happen that I haven't thought of, that someone else will think of. And that's what happened here.
Well, you have to close it up. Let me just ask one closing question, because clearly we have fans in the audience. And then you guys are going to join us in the lobby afterwards?
We're actually sleeping over here tonight.
Awesome. All right, so we're here to say hello to. Just want to know what's next for you. You spoke a little bit about the film you're working on, but I'd love to hear from each of you as to what you're working on next.
Yeah, I did that. I just finished that movie I told you about, and then I'm doing a movie next year called I Play Rocky, and it's about the making of the movie Rocky. And it's really an interesting story. It's Stallone's story, which is he was homeless when he wrote that script. And he got it up to the right people. They're like, yeah, we'll make it. And he said, okay, but I play Rocky. And they're like, no, you don't play Rocky. You know, Ryan O'Neal plays Rocky, or Clint Eastwood, or Burt Reynolds, not you. And it's the battle he had to play that role, and how the studio kind of tried to sabotage him, because he signed a thing if he followed the day behind schedule, and they only shot it 4 weeks, by the way. 4 weeks they shot that, $1 million. But if he fell 1 day behind, they could fire him, and he couldn't argue. So they were always doing shit to screw him up, like the meat punching scene, frozen solid. It's supposed to be cold meat, ice like a rock. And he goes, I can't punch that, that's a rock, it's supposed to be cold. And they're like, well, we can we can thaw it out, hair dryers take 3 hours. Let's do it, breaks both his hands, like that kind of thing, constantly throughout the making of the movie. And then it goes on to be Rocky. So it's a really interesting story.
And no, Muriel Hemingway is not in that movie. I have written with another partner, wrote a supernatural thriller, because that's my genre, apparently, and that's going to be coming out probably next year, called Day of the Dead. And just keep your eyes, your ears, your nose, your toes open for it. Yeah. But thank you, everybody. I was so thrilled when I saw it was sold out, because I was thinking, about 6 weeks ago, the American Cinematheque in Hollywood, the Egyptian Theater, showed Dumb and Dumber in the middle of the week at 10 p.m. at night, and I showed up thinking, oh, I can't wait to, maybe I'll say something. I have 6 people in the audience. Okay, yeah, I mean, there was no one there. It was the middle of the week. It was a crazy time to do it. This is so gratifying I will always try and show up if it's playing in a theater with an audience, because that's music. It's just sweet music, laughter like this. Thank all of you.
Thank you. Once one more time, let's give it up for a special guest.
Thank you very much.